Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a video called How to Identify Undeveloped Traits or Characteristics Within Your Sign, and what you can do to help yourself move into developed from underdeveloped. Now, disclaimer, I am no professional psychologist or therapist. I don't have all of the answers, but I have been studying astrology for 5 years now. So with that said, let's dive right in. Firstly, we have Aries. Now, to identify or spot undeveloped traits within Aries, it's usually people who combust easily or get mad easily. They could be kind of one-sided. Perhaps someone's trying to convey something to them or express their side of a situation, and that Aries person is refusing to listen to anything that anyone else feels or thinks. I would say very impulsive, making really poor decisions for themselves and others, and then emotionally disconnecting or not always owning up to when they are wrong. And these are some of the underdeveloped, I would say, traits for Aries. Definitely aggressive, definitely quick to start a fire or a fight, and then just not really put it out. Just walk away. Just be like, alright guys, put that fire out because I'm over here chilling. So that's what I would interpret as an underdeveloped Aries sign. To alleviate those qualities or traits, I think it's definitely important for them to find balance or find a sense of organization in their life, something structured for them to constantly have that centers them. I think a lot of the time with Aries is they get so rambunctious and energetic and have a lot of energy to kind of put out into the world that it leaves them kind of focused on everything all at once. And to kind of center them, it's good to keep them, or for yourself, not them, but to kind of put yourself on a schedule, have a routine, have something that you at least try to make a point of doing every single day, and then also just being more willing to listen to others without taking it as a personal attack, because sometimes when you do something to hurt someone's feelings, it's so unintentional that you don't even realize that you're doing it. And I think it's easy to get defensive and think that it's a personal attack on your character, but really it's just someone trying to convey a situation or a problem that you both can alleviate together. So definitely just listening more. Not focusing so much on impulsive reactions, but focusing more on just maybe counting to 10. I think that's the best advice for Aries, just count to 10 before you react. Really just think it through. That's their hardest issue, is just if they can become more perceptive of everyone around them and give themselves the time to just take something in and really think about it and analyze it. By the time that they're ready to react, they're not going to be as feisty as they probably would be if they just thought it through. Now we have Taurus. For underdeveloped qualities in Taurus, I would definitely identify overindulgence, overspending, constantly starting issues or starting a debate and picking at things. They have a hard time wanting to accept fault, but will kind of overly and meticulously search for everyone else's, wants to kind of just take off and do what they want, but if anyone else does anything similar, it's a problem. I would definitely say, learning to put money away, saving it, actually saving it and not touching it and dipping back in every so often is a really good way to help Taurus, because Taurus is someone that really needs that security to feel better about themselves, and I think if they feel more secure, they'll respond and act more stable. And then also just listening to the opinion of others and not taking anytime someone disagrees with them as a personal assault on who they are as a person. And yeah. Next we have Gemini. Is it Gemini? I'm an astrologer. Gemini is very, I want to say, underdeveloped. They can be overly critical and more likely to want to ridicule everything around them, has a superiority complex, feels like everything they do is unique and exciting and better than everyone else, has a kind of an identity issue with needing to overly express who they are even when they don't fully know it yet. And then this can lead to some problems with insecurity or anger when how their image in the world isn't being perceived in the way or the light that they want it to be. It can feel like a personal attack on their own identity when it's not that serious. Also, underdeveloped Geminis love to hear themselves talk, but they don't really like to listen to anything around them, which can also be like a catch-22 for them because they love to hear themselves talk, but they also love having an intellectual debate or a conversation. So then they kind of come out feeling drained and empty from every conversation that they have with others because they're not actually engaging in conversation, they're just talking at people. So I definitely feel like learning to just listen more, that's one of the big ones for them. Learning that they don't have to be the coolest person in the room or the most unique or creative. Like, they can still be creative without having to uphold this facade or this image that they put on themselves. Of doing things that they love based off of genuinely liking it and not how it's going to give them points at a party. Because if they're living in a hollow way, they're going to reflect that and act shallow because of that. So trying to be more committed towards their projects and their jobs and be a person that kind of stays true to their word, because it's one thing to be talkative, but if everything that you say isn't even true, people aren't going to want to talk to you. So it's also just finding a balance between entertainment and communication and reliability. So yeah, that's Gemini. Then we have Cancer. So Cancer is more of the stereotypical Sailor Moon depiction, like overly emotional, given all these manipulation stereotypes, which I don't personally like or agree with, because I feel like you shouldn't ever use clinical terms or diagnosis when associating the signs. But I feel like they are this way, disclaimer, they are this way because they are ruled by the moon, so they can pick up on other people's wavelengths and emotions so easily that it's hard for them sometimes to know how to process this and channel it for themselves, thus creating undeveloped Cancer. An undeveloped Cancer can have a hard time expressing themselves and being honest with others in the sense of expressing or describing their emotions, which can leave them feeling very frustrated, and I think this is what leads to them coming off as manipulative or whiny because they don't know how to express themselves in a mature way or be honest and vocal, so they will do things behind the scenes, like kind of talking badly about someone that they consider their friend or their loved one behind their back to someone else, and kind of victimizing themselves in a scenario where you both had a disagreement, and kind of making you look like you're hurting them or abusing them or doing something to them on a severe emotional level, which will obviously bring concern to the relationship or the friendship, and have a lot of people kind of on their side looking at you like, what's going on? And especially if it is exaggerated and then there's not much truth to it, it can be really frustrating, especially when you are invested or concerned with someone who is an undeveloped Cancer. And also, they can be really reactionary, but like I said, I don't think they're the type to overly or typically express their emotions in a way that is rational. They can have a hard time with just being like, hey, you just hurt my feelings, and like instead of doing that, they'll just explode. And so they'll either be really volatile and argumentative, or they will do the complete opposite and just ignore you entirely and act like everything's okay, but meanwhile just be causing a whole lot of commotion behind the scenes. So I feel like with an undeveloped Cancer that you are their babysitter. How to remedy this is to definitely learn to be more vocal and learn to express your emotions in a way that isn't going to emit a negative emotional response from others, like trying to kind of get sympathy or hostility or invoking negative feelings in others when expressing your point of view. Maybe try to put yourself in their shoes and be more empathetic versus kind of going completely straight into what you're feeling like at the time. And also just, I think with Cancer, they just have to become more vocal. I think they have a hard time being themselves, and this stems from feeling so overwhelmed all the time by others that they can kind of lose track of who they are. So I think it's just really important for them to definitely put out into the world what they want, their expectations, and just make sure that you can express yourself without having to, you don't always I think they feel like they have to have people feel bad for them in order to win an argument or get their point across, but they have to learn that doesn't always mean that you're winning the argument. It just means that people are feeling sorry for you, and it can frustrate you because you're not going to always get what you want that way. So, Leo. Up next we have Leo, and this one is probably the most obviously dramatic. When you cross paths with an undeveloped Leo, they are going to be the most loud and animated and vibrant person. And if they aren't like a cheerful vibrant, they're going to have a loud personality. And what I mean by this is you will definitely know that they are in the room. Undeveloped Leos can be very sarcastic and rude, kind of like an undeveloped Sagittarius, but I'll get into that later. They can be really deflective on everything, kind of monotone. They can have a hard time handling any comment that can help better improve their life because they'll take it as a personal attack, even when it's not, and they'll respond extremely defensively to even the smallest statements or words. They'll read into everything. They'll make everything centered around them in the sense that if your mood if say you're just having a bad day and they cross paths with you and you're not, at a 10 when they want you to be at a 10, they'll think it's because of them when it's not. Like you could just be having a bad day, and if you're not giving them the enthusiasm that they need from you, they're going to think that like they've upset you, and they'll just, it can be draining to constantly please their ego and cater to what makes them feel good in the moment. They can also be extremely one-sided, as most fixed signs. Undeveloped have the habit of not listening to anything around them, but constantly needing to be heard, and it's just this weird dynamic of overly expressing themselves, but then not listening to who they are even expressing themselves to, and that can be really messy really fast because they'll trust people so easily and then get genuinely confused when their bad behavior gets a negative reaction or someone talks about them I think undeveloped Leos also have a really bad habit of oversharing and talking way too much about their past or their hardships, because I think that it's going to be an instant way to bond with someone. And I think they need to learn that just because you can tell people things doesn't mean that they are going to be loyal to you. So yeah, I think to help an undeveloped Leo become a developed Leo, it definitely would be, you would definitely have to, oh no, you need Jesus, no I'm kidding, more self-aware and be more willing to adjust and admit to the things that they do negatively and then actually change them. I think when they can take criticism with a grain of salt is when they're able to go on and do great things. It's when everything, even the smallest comment, overpowers them, they're not able to live their life to their fullest potential, and they can become sad and bitter because of that. Of Virgo. Oof. So, undeveloped Virgo is extremely cutthroat, sarcastic, defensive, analytical. The person that will methodically pick you apart. They want to pick your brain apart. They want to go straight into everything that you do wrong, find all of your weak points, and then kind of highlight them and keep them lamented somewhere for them to pull back later and go organize through or use against you. They're the first to always identify with how other people can do things wrong, but if their behavioral traits or their tendencies can be harmful to others, they don't really like to take a lot of accountability for that, and they will just mostly discard you or leave the situation entirely to avoid having to face themselves. I think what keeps them safe from the world is by their blanket of judgment and their need to tear everyone else down before they can be looked at or torn down first. Because I feel like humans in general have a natural tendency to, when someone else is criticizing them, they usually are so blinded and hurt by what that person said to them, they're not going to look back at what their problems are, I would think. So that's why Virgo is typically always protected by this. We don't really attack Virgo easily because they usually will just take themselves out of a situation before someone can get too close and analyze their weak points. They don't like to feel like they have any weaknesses. And I feel like that is the biggest weakness in itself. So I guess just learning to be more patient with others and learning that not everyone is perfect, as cliche as that sounds, and then just not the superiority complex, learning to sacrifice some of that ego, and then also just to remember that they are not perfect either. I know it's hard, but yeah. And then we have Libra. So an undeveloped Libra can be extremely passive-aggressive because Libras typically like to be objective and diplomatic and look at all sides of things. But because that tilting scale of balance is constantly always dipping back and forth, they can feel like they are too selfless. And then when they feel like they are being taken advantage of, they can be so hurt by that, or when they realize that these fairy tales in their head aren't working out or they're not realistic, they can become really passive-aggressive and hostile, but in really, really meticulous and calculated ways. I feel like everything online says that Regina George is your standard Libra, and I see this because they're so polite and sweet, but they're calculating everything that's happening around them, and they always have the best tactics and strategies on how to execute whatever mission that they want. And this can be dangerous because, living off of revenge and holding things in, but doing aggressive things or awful things to people in order to feel like they are getting some sense of joy is not a healthy way to live. So I would definitely say just learning to be more vocal and more honest with people and more upfront instead of hiding behind charades of politeness, because etiquette only goes so far with people until they start to realize who you really are. Then we have Scorpio. Scorpio, an undeveloped Scorpio is extremely, I don't want to say conceited, but they have a very strong sense of self, so intensely that no one can really tell them who they are, or no one can kind of offer criticism or anything that will help them in the future, because they're so set on being this big shield that sees through everything, but no one can see through them. I think they can get so stuck in this idea of being so strong and emotionless that they forget that they're human, and I feel like they have such a huge ego. Undeveloped Scorpios are constantly needing to overcompensate for whatever that is making them feel empty on the inside by being very loud, or having such a bold personality, or always needing to stand out, or always receiving some form of gratification or attention. And I just feel like they are extremely one-sided. Like I said, all fixed signs so far are all one-sided when they're undeveloped. And I just feel like they will not tolerate anything that they don't personally like or agree with. And they won't be open-minded towards listening to anything that anyone has to say. They also are so analytical and meticulous that they will make up their mind about you through one or two things, and then very rarely will they ever change their mind. Also, they hold on to grudges really easily. Someone could forget to give them back a Sharpie, and then it's just automatically, they will never forget that 50 years later, and they'll still be genuinely upset over the fact that they just didn't get their Sharpie back. And, yeah, so I think when they can learn to become more empathetic to people and realize that the world doesn't revolve around them, and that everything they say isn't always accurate, and everything they think about people isn't always as true as they want it to be or they would like it to be, I think it'll help them become more well-rounded. And yeah. Sagittarius. Okay, so undeveloped Sagittarius people are extremely mean. Like, they are probably the scariest out of the zodiac, because they can flip like a switch really easily. They can be really nice one second, then just go like way to the other side and then the next. Things set them off really easily. They can be really sharp-tongued. They are so honest, and I feel like because when you're undeveloped and you have these naturally honest traits, you feel like everything that you do is okay because you're being truthful, but I think they have to realize that not everything needs to be known. They're kind of like, I would envision an undeveloped Sagittarius as the kind of person that would overly go out of their way to tell a stranger that they look awful and feel like they did a good thing because it was the truth. And I think learning that, like, not everything needs a response, it'll be a lot better for them. And then also helping them grow from undeveloped to developed is just not leaving every situation when they get stressed out or upset or frustrated, to make commitments, but not make 20 commitments all at once and then get confused when they don't have the energy to do all of them and then flake on all of them. Just kind of learning how to center yourself and use the optimism that you're capable of in a way that helps yourself and helps people around you, instead of kind of perpetuates the state of inner and outer chaos. Capricorn. Because they are ruled by Saturn, I feel like they grow up feeling like an adult already. They already feel like you don't need to tell them anything, you don't need to do anything to teach them anything, because they already know. They're the adult. But on the flip side, they can become so like hermity and like closed off and stuck in their own ideas of what they feel is okay or what they feel is right, that no one can break through that little shell. Like, they feel like they're such an adult, or that they have everything together, that they have everything figured out all the time throughout every chapter of their life, and like maybe when they look back they realize they didn't, and it's probably because they don't. And I feel like they have a hard time with accepting that not everyone is evil, or not everyone is wrong, or not everyone has an ulterior motive, and I feel like they get so stuck in their own ways that they forget to kind of be more objective. I feel like everything is about what they think or what they feel, and I think to help them grow, they need to be more open-minded and kind of realize they can't control or figure out everything all at once, and that when they realize they don't know everything, I think it will leave them a little bit more humble, and I think it'll help restore a little bit more humility in them, because I think they have a strong issue with connecting with others on a emotional spectrum, and that's because they're so governed by discipline and restrictiveness and constantly needing to just focus on like tasks and work and statistics. They don't really want to engage emotionally, and I think because of that, there's a lot emotionally that they still need to learn. So when they make like so many snap judgments on things, like a lot of it is unsupported because they don't really have that emotional truth to it. What is that? Aquarius. We have Aquarius. So Aquarius, undeveloped, will push anything away at the slightest moment of emotion or commitment. They don't like to be held down. They don't like to feel things. They feel like it's safer when they can just run away and avoid anything. If an Aquarius likes you, they will just ghost you. That's how you know if they like you. So, an undeveloped Aquarius at least. But, yeah, they will run from anything where they have to be emotionally vulnerable, or, I think they're so great at, like, group projects and focusing on things as a whole, that they don't like to focus on things as the self. And so they'll push things away and then regret it. They can be really closed off, really distant, have a hard time wanting to trust easily or wanting to feel things easily. And I think to combat that, I think it's just being more emotionally vulnerable and then also more honest with themselves, learning that they can't fix society as a whole if they can't even fix their own love life or their own or interpersonal relationships. Pisces, we have Pisces. So an undeveloped Pisces is extremely dreamy and sweet and kind, but also severely judgmental and critical, and maybe prone to lying or twisting the truth because they live in their own reality, so whatever their reality is isn't usually always what is true or what's actually happening at the time. And this can be frustrating because trying to have a conversation with them when they're undeveloped is like trying to get, I don't know, it's hard. It's difficult. So also they can cut people off easily and they don't really give them a lot of chances. I think to become more developed as a Pisces, they have to be more vocal and more honest, and they have to be more upfront, not willing to live in this state of delusion or this state of naivety towards the world around them. They have to just be more cutthroat, be more honest with themselves and with others, because they will hold things in and get resentful of someone to the point that they will just leave them, and then the person will be so blindsided, they'll be like, what did I do? And a lot of times those things could have been salvageable, they could have been like easy things to fix. So yeah, that completes this video. It is getting progressively darker outside as I record. I don't know why it's getting so dark. This is wild. So yeah, I don't really ever say this, but like and subscribe if you liked this video. If you want to see more videos like this, yeah, comment below. Let me know what you think. I'm sorry that it started getting so dark. I don't know. I also just feel like, hold on. I also just